University of the Philippines, Visayas, Tacloban College, through the ENS 203 class of Masters of Science in Environmental Science, brings you Project SOWAM, an environmental information campaign on solid waste management. To formally start this webinar, let us have a prayer and to be followed shortly by the Philippine National Anthem.
For once again, we are gathered and given the opportunity to appreciate life and your words. Forgive us for our shortcomings and cleanse our hearts as we learn and live your words and example. Father, bless our endeavors, especially today's meeting. May you guide us in our discussions and may you enlighten our minds in every decision that we make. Give us your grace that we may effectively do our parts for your greater glory. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Project SOWAM, an environmental information campaign on responsible solid waste management. This webinar is an educational discussion on the pressing environmental issue on solid waste. We will be tackling current waste management legislations, practices, and situations. I am Leonard Silaras, and I will be your host for this presentation. Before we start with the discussion proper, let us first hear a short opening remarks from a professor at the University of the Philippines, Visayas, Tacloban College. We have Dr. Lenny Yap Dijeto.
Maupay nga gabi, good evening to everyone. Thank you for responding to our invitation. This webinar is the culminating activity of ENS 203 or Advanced Aquatic Ecology class of our Masters of Environmental Science course here in the University of the Philippines, Visayas, Tacloban College. This class is taught by yours truly and in tandem with Dr. Nancy A. Dayap, who is also with us here. Sir Lito Casas, the chair of our department, is also here. So are some of the faculty members and students of our college. And to all our guests coming from Tacloban City and other cities in the Visayas, I hear there are also some participants even coming from Luzon, in Batangas, and even outside of the country, from Brazil. Welcome. This webinar was inspired by the dialogue we had with LGU of Tacloban City during the Foundation Day celebration of our college last May. The mayor of our city lamented that people do not segregate their garbage. And as a way to help out, I told the ENS 203 students that we should have some sort of an advocacy campaign to help manage our solid wastes. I was pleasantly surprised that the students of this class fully and enthusiastically agreed with me to do this. So all these, the planning, the execution are done by the students of the class. Initially, they planned to conduct a face-to-face seminar in one of the barangays in the north. But since there's a surge of COVID cases, this webinar is the alternative. That I think is better as this has reached a wider audience and there's an open forum and breakout session at the end of the talks. And we hope that we can learn from one another. So hopefully this will create a ripple effect and can translate to a cleaner and greener city. So in behalf of the class 203 and Dr. Nancy Diap, I welcome you to Project SOWAM, an environmental information campaign on responsible solid waste management. Tara pag-urusa kita, sakto na pagburog-blag han basura, tikangan na. Damo nga salamat.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Lenny. Going to the discussion proper, I'd like to go over a few things so everyone will know how to participate in today's discussion. You're currently listening to the webinar using your computer's speaker system by default, and participants are muted by default. You will have the opportunity to submit your questions during the discussion by typing your questions in the chat box. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. However, this will only be addressed during the Q&A session. In case you want to raise your questions live, please wait for the discussion forum part. This meeting is already being recorded by the organizers, so there's no need for you to take pictures or video recordings. If you want to access the recording after the meeting, kindly inform us. So that would be all for the reminders, and we will now start directly with the discussion proper. Allow me to give you a brief background on solid waste management. So my presentation is entitled Introduction to Solid Waste Management. And in my presentation, I will be defining what is solid waste. I will highlight on the need for responsible solid waste management by mentioning some facts and figures on solid waste outputs as well as impacts of unmanaged solid waste. Lastly, I will give a brief introduction on gaps on solid waste management. So waste is simply referring to any material discarded because of its lack of use or importance. And there are actually several types of waste. We have solid waste, liquid waste or wastewater, effluents. There's also gaseous emissions, among others. And though pollution with wastewaters and gas emissions is also a pressing issue nowadays, only solid waste is the primary concern of our webinar. So solid waste referred to all discarded household, commercial, non-hazardous, institutional, and industrial waste, which may also include street sweepings, construction debris, agricultural waste, and other non-hazardous and non-toxic solid waste. Yeah, so our waste is classified into 4 categories. First is we have compostable waste. These are biodegradable waste such as food waste, garden waste, animal waste, and human waste. They undergo biological degradation under controlled condition and they can be turned into compost. Examples of these includes fruits and vegetable peelings, leftover foods, leaves, animal entrails, among others. Recyclable materials refer to any waste materials retrieved from the waste stream and free from contamination and can still be converted into suitable beneficial use. They may be transformed into new products in such manner that the original products may lose their identities. This includes newspapers, metals, corrugated cardboards, aluminums, glass, among others. Residual waste are solid waste materials that are non-compostable and non-recyclable. It should be disposed ecologically through a long-term disposal facility or by sanitary landfills. This includes sanitary napkins, disposable diapers. We have cartons, which contains plastic linings, which is usually used for milks and containers. We have plastics and sachets. Next, on special waste, this refers to hazardous household waste, which includes paints, thinners, household batteries, electronics, broken TV sets, stereos, among others. Yeah, so let's have a brief trivia. So for a chance to win 100 pesos Gcash load, which among the different classification of solid waste composes a large portion of waste output in the Philippines? A, we have compostable waste, B, recyclable waste, C, residual waste, and D, special waste. So the first person to chat the letter of the correct answer in the chat box wins. Yeah, so I can't actually see the chat box at this moment, so we will be announcing the winner at the end of my presentation. Ayan, may nag-answer na daw. Yan, so we have Mr. JD Magoncha from UP Tacloban. Yan, congratulations, Kuya JD. Yan, so yes, this is true. Understanding the content, sources of solid waste, as well as trash generation rates and waste projections is necessary for describing the country's solid waste situation. So in a data from EMBDNR, biodegradable waste or compostable waste comprise about half or 52% of municipal solid waste. This is mostly food scraps and kitchen wastes. Recyclable waste account for almost a quarter or 27%, which is mostly papers, cardboards, and special wastes, which consist of household healthcare waste, is only 2%. So finally, our residuals have found to be making up about 18% of the generated municipal solid waste. According to sources, municipal solid waste come from various sources, which includes residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional sources. In 2015, a summary on waste pollution among coastal communities in 192 countries was published. And here, Philippines was ranked third among the largest producers of mismanaged plastic waste. Philippines have a generation plus a waste generation rate of only about 0.52 kilograms per person per day as compared to other countries, even reaching up to 2.58 kilograms per person per waste. However, a large portion of these waste are plastic and a large portion of these waste is mismanaged. Yeah, so the Philippines being the third largest producer of mismanaged waste is attributed to challenges in waste handling. Indicated here that from source, only about 50 to 70% waste is segregated, and in some areas, only about 40% is collected, while in some areas have up to 90% collection rate. This difference is attributed to different policy implementations of LGUs. Recycling rate of some materials is as low as 20%, but some can go as high as 70%, depending on the material being recycled. Moreover, composting, the disposition to sanitary landfills and open dump is practiced in the country, but we have no facility for incineration, and open burning is highly prohibited. So if we do not act now, waste output is expected to skyrocket to about 23.6 million metric tons by 2025. So 1 ton is 1,000 kilograms, so that is about 23.6 billion kilogram of waste in a year. So unmanaged plastic waste have several implications, one of which is health impacts. So solid waste pollution can increase the risk of waterborne diseases, and industrial waste are toxic and can contaminate and harm water bodies. Moreover, exposure to solid waste can lead to nausea, vomiting, and respiratory diseases. Aside from the health impacts on people, unmanaged waste also have negative impacts to the environment. These solid waste aggravate problems and disaster caused by flooding due to clogged waterways. Garbage obstruct the water flows on rivers, canals, and other wetlands, worsening the flooding situations in an area. Solid waste are also major contributors to rendering some wetlands to become biologically dead, and solid waste also causes mercury toxicity of water bodies. Plastics in the ocean are ingested by birds. High algal population forms in rivers and lakes, causing oxygen deprivation of marine organisms and fish kill. It may also degrade water and soil quality. So United Nations Environmental Program in their report have carried out gap analysis in Southeast Asian countries to assess the waste management profiles of each country. In their report, it was found out that failure in solid waste management issue is caused by these gaps. First is on policies, programs, and plans. The Philippines actually has several policies and programs for waste management, and this includes the Ecological Solid Waste Management Acts. In the country, one of the major challenges is proper planning and implementation by the LGUs. Different levels of compliance with RA 9003 among local government units is evident, with compliance of some LGUs being comparatively low. So the framework for the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act and the reason for non-compliance of some LGUs will be discussed in the next presentation by Mr. Kevin Memoracion. Another gap on solid waste management in the country is because of technology. There is a wide array of municipal solid waste mismanagement occurring from the collection to dumping to segregation and to recycling and processing of these waste. So recycling infrastructures lack upgrading and coverage and proper facilities, and not all people have access to composting technology. So these challenges will be addressed later by Ms. Cherry Halturalde in her discussion on the best practices for solid waste management. Lastly, in an institutional level, the country lacks data and information and accessibility to existing data. For example, there is no actual figure at the national level on the volume processed from municipal solid wastes. Moreover, there is no major initiative related to development of institutional framework for developing recycling industries, and cost of investment is high, while project support is very limited. So Mr. Eugene Abria will be presenting solid waste management in the case of Tacloban City. Lastly, we'll be having a workshop on project development on solid waste management to be facilitated by Ms. Hannah Alexis Asilo. So without further ado, let's now start with the framework of ecological solid waste management in the country. So we have Mr. Kevin Ray Memoracion.
Thank you, Nard. Hi, everyone. Maraming salamat sa pagsali ngayong gabi sa webinar na ito. At sa puntong to, ibabagi ko ang mga aking napag-aralan at naituro sa akin patungkol sa Republic Act 9003, the Solid Waste Management Mandate and Framework in the country. So, Republic Act 9003 is otherwise known as the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. Before ako mag-continue, for 100 pesos load, paunahan lang mag-comment sa ating chat box, guys, anytime as I read the question. Ano ang pangalan ng garbage dump shown sa screen na nag-landslide noong July 2000 at tumitil ng humigit sa 500 katao na isa sa sinasabing dahilan ng pagsulong ng RA na ito? Alright, so we will announce later sino na. Meantime, to continue, this act was approved on January 2001 by then President Gloria Arroyo, considered to be a broad-based and comprehensive approach to solid waste management that aims to adopt a systematic, comprehensive, and ecological solid waste management program. Mayroon itong 7 na chapters specified here. Mahaba-haba rin, kaya magpo-focus lang tayo sa ibang salient features, lalo na sa chapter 6, yung penal provisions or mga ipinagbabawal. Yung chapter 2 ay nagpapakita ng kung paano yung epektibong solid waste management ay makakamit sa pamamagitan ng pagsasagawa ng institusyon o grupo na pinangungunahan ng National Solid Waste Management Commission. Ito ay binubuo ng national government agencies and representatives ng NGOs o tatlong private sectors of recycling, manufacturing, or packaging industry. Pinangunguluhan ng DENR, who exercises visitorial and enforcement powers to ensure strict compliance and issues rules and regulations tasked to formulate the National Solid Waste Management Framework, implements and oversees the plans. Other institutions na ginawa ng act na ito ay ang Solid Waste Management Boards on the provincial and city or municipal levels. The former is chaired by the governor and the latter by the mayor, and both basically develop, submit, and implement plans on their respective levels. And another group formed is the National Ecology Center, headed by the EMB, composed of a pool of experts and sectors providing technical assistance, as shown in this simple framework showing how said formed institutions work with the LGUs na siyang responsible primarily sa implementation at enforcement ng law na ito. So yung barangay LGUs ang magsisegregate at magngongolekta ng biodegradable, compostable at reusable waste at sa pamamagitan ng kanilang material recovery facilities, while yung municipal or city LGU ang mangongolekta ng residual or special waste. These are at the same time habang yung ating komunidad ay sumusunod o nagpo-comply. Yung mga responsibilidad na iyon ay anchored sa RA 7160, Local Government Code of the Philippines, na nagsasaad that LGU should provide for an efficient and effective system of solid waste and garbage collection and disposal, and prohibit littering and displacing or throwing of garbage, refuse, etc. Section 458 then additionally states that cities should regulate the disposal of clinical and other waste from hospitals, clinics, and other similar establishments, which, as we all know, is very much important in this time of pandemic. The Act is based on the management of waste in the shown hierarchy, showing actions of which those at this level, starting from avoid, is much preferred than those at the lower level. And as observed, mandatory source reduction or avoidance and minimization of waste generated at source is targeted in households. So it is our direct responsibility to avoid first, then reduce, etc. Reuse, recycling, and resource recovery of waste should be done at most at the barangay level for the mandatory segregated collection of LGUs and their transfer and transport ng strictly dapat residual waste na lang. While if it cannot really be avoided, less preferred options, management of residuals and disposal sites and related technologies for the processing of residuals should at least be available in a provincial, metro-wide, or first-class city scale. Moving on to Chapter 3, to attain comprehensive solid waste management, these steps should have been taken after the passage of the law, so there is a timeline. First, after 6 months upon effectivity, the National Solid Waste Management Status Report was made as inventory and characterization. Then after 6 months, management framework that contains the shown specified components A2L was made, which is the one that is being patterned by the LGUs in making their own local plans. Next, inventory of existing markets for recyclable materials was conducted for promotion of recycling market development. Establishment of materials recovery facility in barangays or their clusters are mandated, as well as the closure of the dump sites at the opening of sanitary landfills, which is nagkakaiba in a way that, as shown sa left picture of a open dump site, tinatapon lang yung mga basura ng walang pagpaplano at konsiderasyon sa maaring maidulot sa environment o sa kalusugan. While yung sanitary landfill, an example of which is shown of Tacloban sa Barangay San Roque, gumagamit ng engineering control over potential environment or health impacts. So pinapatungan pag nilalagyan ng batch of residual waste at may sumasalo rin na parang plangganang structure para sa leachate o yung liquid mula sa basura. The Act also encourage, cooperate, and render research on solid waste management, creates a fund from fines and penalties imposed, proceeds from permits or licenses, donations, grants, and contributions, then gives incentives, monetary or not, to individuals or private organizations or NGOs with outstanding innovations. Okay, so for another 100 pesos, load, paunahan din sa chat box, guys. What again is the title of RA 9003 or how is it otherwise known as? Sige, we will announce na lang later. So, now let's look at the 13 prohibited acts in Chapter 6 and their corresponding fines and penalties. First is littering, throwing in any public place, punishable by a fine of 300 to 1,000 pesos and or by a community service for 1 to 15 days. Violating sanitation operation and requirements as well as the open burning of waste, which is sadly still prevalent, usually on mga yard waste like leaves, is punishable by a fine of the same amount and or 1 to 15 days of imprisonment. These fines pala are not including the inflation rate, which is 10% every 3 years. Then allowing collection of unsegregated, squatting, or unlawful occupancy of dumps or landfills, open dumping or burying in flood-prone areas, as well as the removal of recyclable material for collection are all a fine of 1,000 to 3,000 and or imprisonment of 15 days to 6 months. Next, the mixing of already separated recyclables in any container or collection receptacle like sa dump truck, the establishment and operation of open dumps, manufacturing, distribution, or use of non-environmentally acceptable packaging materials, which are those that are non-biodegradable, non-reusable, or non-recyclable, or non-toxic, and importation of products in said packaging materials are all punishable with 500,000 pesos plus 5 to 10% of the violator's net annual income. And for Acts 9 and 10, 1 to 3 years of imprisonment is given for subsequent violations. Importation of toxic waste wrongly labeled and transport and dumping in bulk of collected waste is punishable by a fine of 10,000 to 200,000 on or imprisonment of 1 to 3 years. Lastly, facilities without an environmental compliance certificate and not conforming with the land use plan, construction within 200 meters from dumps or landfill, and facilities on aquifers, groundwater reservoir, or watershed areas because of the dangers of leachate contamination have fines of 100,000 to a million and or 1 to 6 years of imprisonment as shown. Yung isang nabasa ko patungkol rito sa mga violations ay yung sa 9 mayors and other local officials na kinuha. Pero sadly, kinuha din yung mga suspension orders sa kanila dahil daw sa limitasyon and challenges ng batas na ito. Some of those limitations include kakulangan ng infrastructure or facilities dahil din sa kakulangan ng financial capability, dahil nga kahit na iniingganyo ng gobyerno ang implementasyon ng batas na ito, hindi nito binibigyan ng cost-sharing grants ang LGUs or appropriated fund, unlike in GAD or DRR with 5% appropriations. Mahal din ang paghakot gaya sa Leyte na wala talaga tayong accessible na treatment facility, halimbawa, para sa toxic waste. Hindi din prioridad ng maraming LGUs kaya mahina ang pagpapatupad. Mahirap din ang pagpasok ng private sector investment para sa waste treatment technologies at higit sa lahat, umaasa din tayo sa single-use packaging or tingi-tingi system kung tawagin yung mga sachet, tigpipisong mantika and all that. Kaya mahirap makamit yung partisipasyon ng komunidad gaya ng marami sa atin dito na undeniably are still not practicing segregation at homes. Dahil din hindi naabot yung milestone dates na sa 2004, dapat wala ng open dam sites at sa 2006, wala ng control disposal facilities dapat, kinakailangan talagang pagbutihin pa ang batas na ito o i-amend, especially on the fines and penalties. Maaring mapapabuti kung madadagdagan. So, that is all. Here are my references. Maraming salamat sa inyong atensyon.
Thank you so much, Kuya Kevin, for your comprehensive report on ecological solid waste management. Yeah, so the next topic is best practices for solid waste management to be presented by Ms. Cherry Helby Turalde.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cherry Helby Turalde, and it is an honor to present to you my topic presentation, which is all about these best practices for solid waste management. Here is my topic outline. First, I will be discussing the importance of solid waste management, the role of waste characterization, the different approaches in waste management as outlined in the waste management hierarchy, and the participation of different stakeholders. Why is solid waste management important? So there are three general reasons to this, and it relates to its impact to human health, the environment, and the socio-economic condition of a society. First, in terms of human health and well-being, mismanaged waste can be breeding grounds of insects and germs, which can cause the spread of diseases. Burning of waste also emits air pollutants, which can cause respiratory illnesses. When it comes to its environmental impact, it can be a threat to stray animals and wildlife as they may consume non-biodegradable waste such as plastics. The leachate that it produces can also draw out the chemicals from these disposal sites and cause the environmental contamination of soils and water bodies. Lastly, inadequate solid waste management can be costly, and it is also a missed opportunity for economic growth. So what is waste characterization? As much as baseline data is important in research studies, a baseline assessment of the current waste stream is also necessary. So the waste stream is actually the flow of waste from its source up to its disposal. And when we can understand the characterization of these waste in the waste stream, then we can also get some ideas on what types of resources the cities may need, such as the capital, facilities, and manpower. And we can also project some future waste generation and composition rates of the place. The information that we can get in the waste stream are the sources. The types of sources of waste are the residential, commercial, institutional, and industrial sources. We can also get some data on the quantity and composition of the waste, in which we can use to estimate the capital or investment that a city may have in order to proceed with its waste management system. We can also forecast future waste generation rates, which can be extracted from this baseline data. This will be essential in designing and appropriating programs to treat that waste. Separate handling, treatment, and disposal processes of special waste is also required, as it can pose serious health risks and environmental impacts. Special waste are electronic waste, medical waste, batteries, household hazardous waste, and industrial waste. So waste composition is actually different in every city, locality, or country. That is the reason why there is no single blueprint that can be applied in all of the places when it comes to solid waste management. However, there is a trend that when a country is producing low income, then most of the waste that it produces or generates are actually the organic waste. And when it comes to the high income generating countries, they produce more recyclables and the organic waste that they generate usually decreases. So here is the waste management hierarchy, which is actually the model that is used in outlining the most environmental friendly steps in waste management, which is found at the top um, and also up to the least environment friendly steps at the bottom. These are the source reduction and reuse, recycling and composting, energy recovery, treatment, and lastly, the disposal of wastes. So the first and the most preferred way is the waste prevention, minimization, and reuse. Reducing waste and reusing materials are not only environmentally beneficial, but it can also deliver public health benefits and save money. Stakeholders at all levels play an important part in waste prevention and minimization. So what are the types of waste that can be applied to this? These are the food waste, the packaging materials, and disposable products. So what can we do about these types of waste? We can integrate some social norms, economic and market changes on its condition in order to solve this. For example, in food waste, we can redistribute food that would otherwise be wasted. For example, we can link the food donors, such as restaurants and supermarkets, to food banks in order to provide food for free to the poor people, which would be those food are otherwise be wasted because it does not have ideal shape, size, or color. The packaging materials and disposable products can also be minimized by seeking products with minimal packaging or refusing the use of disposable products and transitioning into the use of products that can be used in a long-term manner. Next, when it comes to organic waste management, this is very important because, as what I said before, more than half of the solid waste mainstream in low-income countries are the organic waste. So first, what we need to do is that we have to separate this organic waste from the source, from the rest of the solid waste. So the types of source is what I have mentioned are the residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional sources of waste. And then these organic waste can be composted or facilitated in anaerobic digestion. Composting may be done in a household, but anaerobic digestion is quite expensive. That's why it requires multi-jurisdictional government bodies to go together or work together and invest in this facility that specializes on anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion can have different co-products such as fertilizers or biogas that can be used to fuel or become electricity to households or fuel to vehicles. Next, recyclables account for 16% of the solid waste in low-income countries, and it continues to increase as economies improve. So what are these types of materials? These are the papers, aluminums, steel, plastics, batteries, glass, used motor oil, tires, and electronic waste. So the basic essence of recycling is that we are going to make a circular loop in which these recyclables are collected from the source and then processed in material recovery facilities, segregated and treated, and then sold back to other manufacturing industries that can use these recyclables so that they can turn into new products. And these new products are then went back to the market and then sold with different or repurposed functions. Then the third approach, if for example, it can't be composted or reused or recycled, then those non-recyclable waste can be turned into energy. So what is done in this part is that these non-recyclables are combusted in these energy recovery facilities in order to produce methane, which is the essential component of natural biogas. And these are used to light up households and become fuel to vehicles. Lastly, the last resort or the least preferred one is the treatment and also disposal. So open dump sites are usually found, diba, in the country. However, these sites actually pose a significant risk to public health and the environment. It contributes to air pollution as it emits methane without us being able to capture this. And then it also has higher risks of spontaneous fires. Rainwater that comes in contact with the waste found in the open dump sites filters through the waste and draws out the chemicals that then leaches into the soil and contaminates it. So what is done here is that there is a slow transition from open dump sites to sanitary landfills in order to minimize this health and environment impacts. Lastly, the involvement of different stakeholders is important in making an effective solid waste management system. The core of the system is the local government, which makes policies and mobilize the public works, agriculture, and environment departments for implementing solid waste management products. Institutional waste generators, commercial and industrial and residential waste generators may devise some ways or rules in order to minimize the production of waste. And then the national government, private companies, non-government bodies, informal recycling, and academic institutions also play different roles to complete a sound and effective waste management system. In summary, this is not just a problem of a single individual or a single sector of the society. It is the responsibility of all the people, even if they perform different roles in the society. Building relationships with residents, interest groups, and other impacted entities to gain support and create a robust solid waste management system is essential. So that is all for my presentation. These are the references that I used. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cherry Helgi Turalde, for your very comprehensive report on best practices for solid waste management. The next presentation will tackle on the solid waste situation in Tacloban City. We have Mr. Eugene Abria.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So, I'd like to ask you, on kumusta man sa Tacloban? I'll be talking about the SOAM situation in the city. Kung gaano ba tayo ka-aware kung ano yung nangyayari within the city. Are Taclobanons religiously practicing proper segregation of the solid waste in their households, or what is the largest waste composition that each household generate, or are they aware that there are existing policies in the city that need to be followed? All right. So before we proceed to those, let's first have a brief timeline on what transpired in the past decade. Okay, so ano nangyari sa Tacloban in the past decades or sa kadekada, ano ang nangyari sa Tacloban? Okay, so in 2006, the Santo Niño open dump site transitions from being an open dump site to being a controlled access facility since there was a mandate in 2004 as discussed by Kevin earlier. By 2009, the Senro begins its citywide information campaign on proper waste management, and by 2011, the Environmental Management Bureau demanded that Tacloban City must build or must have a sanitary landfill. Unfortunately, by 2013, the Super Typhoon Yolanda struck Tacloban City and ending 2013 and entering 2014, marami na tayong mga waste na nandoon lang sa streets natin or kahit nasa loob ng bahay natin. And because of the destruction brought by Super Typhoon Yolanda, 200 trucks a day hauled solid waste and disaster debris, and then they were dumped into Santo Niño dump site. In 2016, Tacloban receives a DNR notice ordering the closure of the Santo Niño dump site, and this is also the launching of the phase 1 of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Program. This is a program implemented by the LGU Tacloban City and in collaboration with the Mother Earth Foundation. By 2017, Tacloban City government passes the Integrated Ecological Solid Waste Management Ordinance requiring segregation at source. So yung sources dito yung household and yung mga establishments all around Tacloban City. In 2018, pedicabs and plastic drums are distributed by the city government to barangays for materials recovery facility. In 2019 naman, sanitary landfill opens in Barangay San Roque, and this is also the partial closure of the dump site in Barangay Santo Niño in Tacloban North. This is due to sanitation issues. So at the present, 2020, from 2020 until now, ano nangyari? Ano natabo aton sa Tacloban? Okay, so we already have an existing policy in Tacloban, which is the no segregation, no collection policy. This is in accordance with the City Solid Waste Management Ordinance in 2017-13-37. So what are the contents of the no segregation, no collection policy? It states that each household or the waste generators must at least have 4 receptacles for waste. So yung mga waste natin. So isa for compostable, isa for recyclable, isa for residual, and isa for yung mga hazardous waste naman natin. Okay. So under this ordinance, according to Senro Head Jonathan Ihaga, yung magko-collect na lang dapat ng service providers or ng mga garbage collectors are only the residual waste. Dapat yung mga compostable and recyclable waste would be left to us. It would be our duty to recycle the recyclable and to compost yung mga compostable naman. Right. So what are the prohibited acts under this ordinance? So we have the failure to segregate, that is on our part, collection of unsegregated waste, indiscriminate dumping, as well as yung bringing out of waste outside of scheduled days. So each barangay has their own scheduled day for collection of trash. So if hindi ka susunod, you will be, you're committing also a prohibited act under this ordinance. And because of this, meron tayong mafa-fine tayo, and meron din mga sanctions. So what are the fines and sanctions under this ordinance? For the first offense, a fine of 300, or you may also render community service for 1 day. For second offense, a fine of 1,000, or render community service for 2 days. For the third offense, a fine of 3,000 or render community service for 3 days. Okay, so these are the fines and penalties. What about incentives naman? Okay, so the incentives, yung mga collected na fines na ma-generate ng apprehending officer, ganito yung magiging breakdown niya as part of incentives. 50% of the collected na mga fines would be allocated to the City Waste Management Fund for the implementation of the ordinance. 40% naman will be allocated to the Barangay Waste Management Fund doon sa barangay wherein nangyari yung violation. This still for the implementation of the ordinance, and 10% will serve as incentive to the apprehending officer. Okay. So that is the existing policy in Tacloban City, the City Solid Waste Management Ordinance 2017-17-37. So let's go to ano naman yung mga categories na major contributors ng waste in Tacloban City. Okay. So the major contributors would be mostly the residential category, which is 44%. Yung commercial natin, yung mga malls, until the retail stores, they comprise only 17%. The market is 20%, and lastly, for the others, they only generate or contribute rather 19% of garbage volume in Tacloban City. Okay, so this is the category. Ilan naman, let's talk about the numbers. Ilan yung na-generate ng each household or each person per day. So on an average, the per individual per day, that would be 0.37 kilograms. So if per week, that would be 2.58 kilograms per individual. If we're talking about on a household na level, the average household generates 1.88 kilograms of waste daily, whereas on a weekly basis naman, that would be 13.15 kilograms. So out of this waste that we generate daily or weekly, ano yung composition nito? Okay. So a large percentage of it is actually compostable, or what we also call as bio-waste or biodegradable waste. 28.5% is recyclable, 28.5% is recyclable, 19.0% is the residuals. This would include yung mga maliliit na plastic, yung mga wrappers. 15.9% is actually residual special. What we mean by residual special, this includes yung mga paint thinners, yung mga rags, as well as yung mga ceramics or broken glass. And lastly, hazardous waste only comprises 3.5%. Okay. So out of this, let's focus on the recyclable, which is 28.5%. Ano yung composition ng recyclable? Okay, for the recyclables, majority out of the 28.5%, 45% of the 20.5% is actually paper products. So that is a large percentage. 26% are hard plastics, metals are 18%, and bottles are 11%. So bakit malaki yung paper products na na-generate natin for the recyclable waste? Well, if we are in a work from home setting, we are fond of delivery food services. So this is usually yung mga packaging ng food natin. So that is why malaki yung paper products natin, as well as in most offices, yung mga scratch papers natin, they also contribute to the paper products. Okay, so if hindi natin minamanage or hindi natin i-recycle yung mga recyclables, where do they go? So they actually go to junk shops, and they are now called as the diverted waste. This diverted waste, or oftentimes called as the recovered waste, Then, these are supposedly recyclable waste na napunta sa junk shop tapos sila na yung mag-recover. Okay. In 2018, there are 23 operational junk shops in Tacloban City and they are still operating until now though. And at the present, we now have the Market Bio-Waste Facility which recovers 2 tons of bio-waste daily and the CTMRF or the City Materials Recovery Facility which recovers 4.2 tons of recyclable waste daily. So if we are going to rely these on these junk shops to recover our own waste, it would actually snowball and increase year per year. Okay. So what if wala lang tayong pakialam? We just rely on these junk shops. So this is an 8-year waste volume forecast. This is an estimated projected generate na waste for the next 8 years. It is estimated that by 2021, Tacloban City would have generated 424.36 tons of waste. And it increases year after year after year as along with the increase of the household population in Tacloban City. And at the end, by end of 2028, Tacloban City would have generated 497.76 tons of waste. So this is the end of the localization and the waste analysis and characterization study in Tacloban City. So let me ask you this. Kumusta man ha Tacloban? If not ha Tacloban, kumusta man ha iyo balay? Are you religiously following the proper solid waste management protocols? And if hindi man, kailan man? If, sige, on another note, even if nagpa-practice ka ng solid waste management in your own home, how about if you try to walk on the streets of Tacloban City? Do you ignore the plastic waste or yung waste na nasa daan? Or do you pick it up and do your part to make the community a better place? So that is all for the discussion on the localization and waste analysis and characterization study in Tacloban City. So that would be all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kuya Eugene Abria, for your presentation, and I hope we are able to reflect on the questions raised by Kuya Eugene. Now to proceed with the open forum part of our webinar, may I call Ms. Hannah Alexis Emasilo to serve as the moderator.
Am I audible, guys?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I also want to hear from the participants. Guys, can you hear me? Am I audible? Hello? May tao po ba dito?
Yes, we hear you,
Yes. Yes, thank you so much for thank you so much for your response. Yan, para lang naman malaman namin kung hindi pa kayo natutulog or you're still with us. So to start the open forum, there are actually already questions raised in the chat room chats, and so those questions in the order kung sino yung unang nagtanong. So the first question is from si Ma'am Faith Ravelo. The question is, who are the LGUs that are successful in their solid waste management, and what are the strategies on making those policy effective on the ground? So yun. I guess one of the speakers can answer this question.
Hello.
Ayan.
Ano?
Also,
Hello.
yes, Kuya Kevin.
I
Yes,
try to sasagutin ko to my best of my knowledge, and as a someone who is currently working as well studying with my limited experience. So for this question, what I think is that it depends on our viewpoint kung paano masasabi na successful siya. Like locally, for example, yung Tacloban, successful siya daw in terms sa kanilang sanitary landfill na ginawa kasi sa citywide na area sa province-wide. Parang siya yung may model pa lang na sanitary landfill talaga. And for example then, as I have conversed with our monitoring officer sa EEB, nag-share siya na yung meron ding DLGUs na gumagamit ng, for instance, gumawa ng ordinances, for instance, na nag-share sila ng yung mga ginagawang prohibited acts ay nire-reflect talaga sa, for example, sa certification, kapag humingi ng certification at meron ka pang pending na kailangan i-answer na act na ginawa mo, nag-reflect doon. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that it depends din sa sa kalagayan ng isang LGU if may strong enforcement team sila or may strong political will. Pero meron din nabasa namin na sa municipality ng Los Baños daw, parang isa siya sa may maganda talaga na solid waste management na practice. So yung ginawa ng mayor is yung ginamit niya yung participative na approach talaga at community mobilization and a three-dimensional approach of social, political, and technical na aspect. At yung ordinance niya is very much anchored talaga sa RA 9003. Merong mga pagbabawal ng mga styrofoam or other na mga types of plastic na hindi naman specified sa RA 9003, for instance. Yes.
Ayan. So thank you, Kuya Kevin, for that answer. Let's go to the next question. Next question is from Sir J.D. Magonsha. The question is, what are the identified NEAP? So, anyone from the speakers?
For this naman, for anyone who's wondering, yung NEAP is yung mga non-environmentally acceptable products na I mentioned earlier in the Prohibited Act portion na ipinagbabawal yung paggawa, pag-package, at paggamit. So yung mga non-environmentally acceptable products, yun yung mga by definition ng Act, yung mga non-recyclable, non-biodegradable, non-reusable, and non-toxic na products sa ating environment. Yung Act talaga is nagre-require siya na magkaroon ng list ng mga NEAP na ito, ng mga bagay na ito. Subalit, or sadly, after 20 years na since the passage of this law, wala pang comprehensive list ng mga identified NEAPs. Pero lately, last February, there was a news saying na may nagpasa ng resolution sa pagbabawal ng mga o pag-identify ng mga plastic soft drink straws at plastic coffee stirrers as NEAPs. And this resolution is already passed but is still not yet implemented. So at present, hindi pa ban yung plastic soft drinks straws and plastic coffee stirrers. Pero na siya, identified as NEAPs. That's all.
Ayan, thank you again, Kuya Kevin. So for the next question, still again from Kuya J.D. Magonsha, I think this question will be answered by Ms. Sherry Helteralde. The question is, which phase in the waste stream shown in the presentation does the Republic Act 9003 targets to solve?
So as we all know, diba, yung waste stream is actually the flow of waste from the source up to its disposal. So actually it covers all of the waste or solid waste that is generated in a place. There is a defined na waste management hierarchy, diba, on handling those specific types of waste. So in RA 9003, when it comes to the avoidance, reduction, reuse, and recycling of mga wastes na pwedeng categorize in source, reduction, and reuse, it is the household, institutional, and commercial generators. These are basically the sources of waste, diba? Waste generators. And then yung ginagawa po nito is that we have to integrate some social norms and market na innovations para maging effective yung refuse, reduce, reuse, and recycle, diba? And then when it comes to recycling and recovery, pinapasa actually ito sa responsibility ng mga barangays. And then lastly, when it comes to the treatment and then the residuals management in landfills and dump sites, pinapasa na din yan sa municipalities or cities and also the province or the nationwide na mga policies in first class na mga cities. So yeah, that's all po yung sa sa phases ng waste stream po.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cherry. So I guess this will be the last question, which will be entertained for the open forum since there are time constraints also, and in order for us to proceed to the next part. So the question is from Sir Rafi Jaco Studio. But I think the two questions are actually connected, so I will say the two questions. So the first question is, how can you convince the LGUs to implement the said law or the RA 9003, considering that LGU can income from penalties if they will implement it? Just like there are families until now, they do backyard burning that contributes carbon dioxide in the environment. And the other question is, why is that LGU had a very limited budget when it comes to environment? I always wonder that they can't afford to buy such technology that minimizes the volume of solid waste, not just solid waste, hazardous waste as well. So anyone from the speakers?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me po?
Yes, Sherry, yes po. We can hear you.
Based on my readings, it is important na magkaroon talaga ng baseline po, diba, na information on what types of waste this certain place or LGU is generating in order to make the appropriate po na mga projects. Kay, for example, a large portion of waste that they generate pala is recyclables, then what they should focus on is to make projects na for recyclables. As if naman kung mga organic waste, then what they should focus on is for organic waste management. So when it comes to convincing the LGUs, I think that we have to mobilize and become kailangan po natin, for example, in our case as environmental scientists and future environmental practitioners, na itap po talaga sila, ipakita kung ano yung actual na situation ng waste management and promote kung ano yung ipinaglalaban po natin na waste management na mga practices and based sa kung ano yung nakita nating data, then yung may tinatawag tayong certain na mga sectors ng LGU na kung saan dapat natin doon tinatap yung mga projects natin na gusto nating ipagawa sa kanila. So I think finding the right na persons doon sa LGU can para ma-convince po natin sila ng maigi kung to implement yung law ng RA 9003. So yeah.
To add on that, I think it is not only a matter of convincing the LGUs. I think it is on them doing their part in implementing these laws. syempre may responsibility din sila. So I hope members of the LGUs that are present here today would take time to look at themselves and how they implement these laws. Yeah, so
Also, based din kasi sa ano doon sa law, parang binibigay yung most of the responsibilities doon sa basic units of the society, like which is yung sa household at saka sa barangay, which is hindi talaga well equipped yung mga barangays natin into that. So mas maganda na magkaroon ng workshops or trainings or gumawa ng mga educational campaigns para sa mga ganoong mga bagay in order to have a parang more robust and successful na implementation of the waste management sa LGU.
Yan. Thank you again, Leonard and Cherry. And also adding what Cherry regarding the role of GU also responsibility and the households, I think centric systems, meaning the LGU, the household as the basic units should cooperate in order to enforce the laws, especially on the solid waste management. Because even though if the LGU, for example, will enforce these laws or legislations and policies, if the communities or the people, residents or the basic households, will not uphold these laws, then it will be meaningless. So again, I think that would be all for the open forum. If you still have other questions, you can still message us directly through our emails, or if you know us through Facebook, you can also message us through the messenger. So I guess we will end the open forum with that, and we will proceed to the next part, or the last part of this webinar, which is actually also moderated by me. So again, maybe I can continue, Leonard.
yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, okay. So again, good evening everyone. Maupay nga gabi, maayong gabi at magandang gabi sa ating lahat. We are now at the end of this seminar or workshop. Wait, I will share my screen. There. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Nandiyan, or natutulog na. So, this is the last part of the workshop, which is on the project planning workshop on solid waste management. And I hope that we still have 100% of your participation, because the knowledge you've learned from the previous presentations, because you will apply the knowledge you've learned from the previous presentations on solid waste management in formulating or creating solutions for the targeting problems of solid waste management. So for this workshop, we will use the design thinking process. So design thinking, in simple terms, is a solution-based approach to solving problems. It is composed of 3 elements: empathy, creativity in solutions, and the rationale in the analysis of solutions. And it also calls for 3 types or designs of thinking, which is inductive, deductive, and abductive. And at the same time, the concept of collective intelligence appears, according to which participation by many people promotes the contribution of various perspectives for the definition of a problem and the formulation of new ideas. So in this workshop, we will, however, the design thinking is actually most commonly used in the business and industry sector, because the end product of design thinking is actually the production of a technology or a product considering the consumer's needs. However, given the societal changes in sustainable development, design thinking is starting to be promoted in the environment. So for this workshop, we will focus on the five-stage design thinking model proposed by Hazel Plattner, Institute of Design at Stanford, or the D School, which is actually the leading university when it comes to teaching the design thinking. So the five stages of design thinking, according to the D School, is empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So for the first process of design thinking is the empathize, wherein the designers or you will learn about the experience and motivation of people, which involves consulting experts or even ordinary people to find out more about the area of concern through observing, engaging, and empathizing, and at the same time, gain a deeper personal understanding of the issues involved. Next process is the define, or simply defining the problem by analyzing observations and making synthesis, thus creating problem statements. And in this process also, you as designers can create personas, which are which represents the target participants of your projects. So after with a solid background of knowledge from the first two phases, from empathize and the define process, you can now start to think outside the box and create solutions for the problem. And brainstorming is very important here. So after the third stage, which is ideate, next is the prototype stage, or prototyping in the fourth process, wherein the designers will build the representations of one or more ideas. So this is actually an experimental phase, which aims to identify the best possible solution for a specific problem. So all with the brainstorming you've done in the first phase, second phase, and the ideation you've done, or the crafting of solutions you've done in the ideate, you will consolidate it in the prototype stage or process and build a representation. And lastly, in the last process is the test process, wherein you will now test the solutions of the solutions you've crafted, and of course gain feedback. However, even though the test is the final stage or final process, thinking is iterative, meaning teams often use the results to redefine one solution or more further problems. So you can return to previous stages to make further iterations, alterations, refinements, and to find or rule out alternative solutions. So as I've said, design thinking is a non-linear process. So don't think of it as if it were a prescribed step-by-step recipe for success. Instead, just use it as a scaffolding to support you when and where you need it. So, for example, as shown in this figure, after you ideate a solution for a specific problem, or maybe you produced a product or a technology, after you prototype it, you learn something and you learn a new idea which could be integrated to that current project. So you will then go back to ideate process, then return to prototype, then test, and even after testing, you still created a new idea for the project. Then you will then go back to ideate process, then prototype and test. So basically, the cycle just goes on until you find a suitable solution for a specific problem. So yan. So we all know that before the COVID-19 pandemic, we used to gather in a room, face-to-face interaction, when we discuss certain problems and craft solutions for that problems by using whiteboards, sticky notes, and markers. However, due to the pandemic, we are restricted to our homes, our houses, and face-to-face interaction is prohibited also. However, I know that this will not stop us from discussing environmental problems, especially environmental problems, and of course, formulate solutions and take environmental actions. So instead of face-to-face interaction from an alternative platform to discuss and brainstorm our solutions or ideas for a specific problem, in this case, solid waste management. So we will use the application Mural, which is an online visual collaboration space where you can brainstorm, understand, and plan with whiteboards, sticky notes, and markers. And also, at the same time, what makes the mural very interesting is that in using mural, the users will have fun interaction, engage, and put their ideas as they also discuss it through many pictures of mural. So in order, I guess we have sent you an email for an instruction on how to navigate mural. I hope the participants have visited the mural app and started to navigate it for you to have an easy navigation through the mural, especially during workshop. And just for an announcement before we go to the mural and we go to the project planning and to your breakout rooms, the project planning or this workshop will actually be a competition, meaning a competition, there will be a prize, and the prize will be a cash prize of 2,000 pesos to the best project proposal. So, okay, now I will stop my share screen first, and I will share a screen of the mural in order for you to give a short instruction na lang, since we've already sent you an instruction prior to this workshop. Share screen, mural. Okay, can you see my screen? Hello? Ay, wala
Yes,
na,
we can
natutulog
see
na
it.
ata.
Yeah, there's project name that's
Oh, the,
there, the team name.
yes po,
Is that what you're
yes.
referring?
Yes,
Right.
thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. Maganda sana rin, no, kung yung participants rin yung nag-respond kasi in order for us to know na hindi nyo kami iniwan at nandiyan pa kayo, masakit kayang iniiwan. Charot. So again, going back to our presentation regarding on the mural. So I hope you've actually seen this before, na the mural, but to give a short instruction, you actually need three basic skills in order to navigate through the mural. First is the zooming and the panning. So in order for you to zoom, this actually, the template you are seeing on your screen is actually also the template you will use later in your breakout rooms in formulating the projects you will propose to targeting the problems on solid waste management. So yes, so now in zooming, you can use the scroll on your mouse to zoom. If you scroll up, it will zoom out, and if you scroll down, it will if you scroll up, it will zoom in, and if you scroll down, it will zoom out. Also, you can use this icon in the lower right of your monitor to zoom in and out. To go around the mural or to peg anywhere on the screen or on the mural in order to navigate the mural. Yes. At the same time, you can also use this trackpad here in the lower right corner of your screen to also navigate the mural. So the next basic skill is on how to add content to the mural. So there, you can also, as you can observe, there are features in the left bar of your the toolbar and the left part of your monitor. So first feature is the text. If you want to put a text, you can just click the text icon or click a title, and there you go. You can now write anything in the mural. So if you want to increase the size, just click this icon, and you can click this icon to decrease the size. If you want to move an element in the mural, you can just click and drag it anywhere and put it there. So again, you can also use the sticky note, which is actually a fun interacting, which I actually recommend because it will, be fun and interacting if you use a sticky note. At the same time, if you want to write something on the sticky note, just double click on the sticky note and write anything there. And to move it again, just click and drag it anywhere on the screen. If you want to delete it, just click it and click the backspace on your keyboard there. So if other content, if you want to put shapes or lines, you can also just click the shapes and connectors icon, as well as the icons. You can see icons here, as well as for the frameworks. This is actually an example of the framework which I used. Next is for the image. You can search for images here to support whatever you will put here. So that's all. And next, this template will not be this template will not be, hindi siya mamumove. However, you can only add content to this template. So now, as I've said earlier, the process for design thinking has 4 process. However, we cannot implement the project now. So we will just hanggang 4th process lang tayo, which is the prototype. So for the empathize process, you have 5 minutes to put your ideas here, to talk about your ideas, and the next you will then define in the next process. You will then formulate the problem statement here in the define stage, and for the ideate, you will write the main objective, specific objective, and the step-by-step process of your project. For the prototype stage, you will just consolidate all your ideas and solutions here in the 3 steps and consolidate here. This for prototype will actually be the part wherein you will present this to the main room, back to the main room. So ito yung gagamitin nyo. So this will again be just 3 minutes. So all in all, you will be given an 18 minutes to finish your project proposal. So I guess that's all. We will now, if you still have question, you can ask as you go along or as you go through the mural. So at this point, you will now be assigned to the breakout rooms, and each speaker will facilitate you.
Yeah, and I think nakabalik na lahat ng participants natin to the main session room. So without further ado, let's start immediately with the presentation of your project proposals.
Good evening. Basically, medyo crammed yung aming work, and we entitled our project Bin and Bin, Introduction of Compost Bin and Vermicomposting to Local Households. So our idea with this prototype project kay usually as small households, di ba, GTI and spaces for composting, and ang priorityhan mga garbage collector usually kay an non-biodegradable waste, which is ninyakan kangina ha presentation liwat. So atak na observe ang community since waray nira labugan bagat ging tatagon nira ha ubos ito nga mga organic waste. So pag collectan garbage collector, pag open nira dalagyap. So aanon man it garbage collector, so ging kukuha lagyap nira. So ako, what if may dahil ni mapagkakitaan ha household? So yung naisip namin is the introduction of the use of compost bin. Bale mayus kita hit drums as a substitute for the composting, tapos mag-aano kita hit vermiculture, or if not, pwede man liwat nga maging communal type inihiya, like an idea kangina ni sir nga mag-ano to sa nga space sa barangay nga dito iglalabog tanan ni ira mga organic waste for composting. So basically ang idea, what rough draft, at least 20 households in a particular barangay, for example nga ni Kabalawan. Then syempre kinahanglan education, training, seminars on vermicomposting, and pwede hiya ma-integrate yun to urban gardening. Tapos ang mga materials sa kinahanglan nila for vermicomposting and bin composting, tapos like may quarterly assessment, and if well maintained hiya, pwede hiya mahatagan incentive ito ng mga households. We think na may damot success factor since yan na nga pandemic, may dakita plantito phenomenon, and nga dihaamon at least every other day may nalibot nga tricycle na baligyat garden soil. So I think may daniya talaga market for that, ito nga ma-produce nga compost or fertilizer. And with that, pwede hiyag maging alternative income, and as I mentioned earlier, pwede ma-integrate to urban gardening gihap para pa maging sustainable it mga household nga diha urban areas. Amo dapat ang idea basically. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you so much, Lens, for your presentation. Yan, so while the judges are deliberating, our judges is Dr. Lenny Yap Dijeto and Dr. Nancy Daya. Yan, so congratulations to everyone for your very amazing ideas. I think if we have a much longer time to discuss our ideas, we will be able to create something that can be pushed through. Yeah. So for the meantime, we will proceed with the awarding of the certificates. So can I call Dr. Nancy Dayap?
On behalf of the class, ENS 203 class, I would like to present this certificate of appreciation to Mark Leonard S. Silaras for his quality involvement as discussant for the topic Introduction to Solid Waste Management during the webinar on #Project SOWAM, an environmental information campaign on responsible solid waste management, held on July 24, 2021, with a duration of 2 hours via Zoom. Given this 24th day of June 2021 at UP Visayas Tacloban College, Tacloban City. Signed, Dr. Lenny G. Yap Bihito, PhD, and Dr. Patricia B. Arinto, Dean of UPV Tacloban City. Congratulations, Leonard. And same certificate of appreciation is given to Kevin Ray C. Memoration, and also for his quality involvement as discussant for the topic RA 9003 Mandate and Framework in the Country during the webinar on Project SOWAM, an environmental information campaign on responsible solid waste management, held June 24, 2021. Given this 24th day of June 2021 at UP Visayas Tacloban College, Tacloban City. Signed, Lenny G. Yap Dihito, PhD, and Patricia B. Arento, ED. Same certificate of appreciation is awarded to Sherry Hill B. Toralde for her quality involvement as discussant for the topic Best Practices for Solid Waste Management during the webinar on #Project SOWAM, an environmental information campaign on responsible solid waste management, held this June 24, 2021, given this day also at UP Visayas Tacloban College, Tacloban City. Signed, Dr. Lenny Yap Dihito and Professor ENS 203 and Dr. Patricia B. Arinto, Dean UPV Tacloban College. And another certificate of appreciation is awarded to Eugene G. Abrea for his quality involvement as discussant for the topic The SOWAM Situation in Tacloban City during the webinar on #Project SOWAM, an environmental information campaign on responsible solid waste management, held June 24, 2021, with a duration of 2 hours via Zoom, and given this 24th day of June 2021 at UPV Tacloban College, Tacloban City. Signed, Lenny G. Yap Dihito, PhD, Professor ENS 203, and Patricia B. Arinto, the Dean UPV Tacloban College. So thank you very much for this to the speakers, and I hope you learned so much from all the presentations. Let me also thank all of you for joining our webinar tonight. I hope this activity created more awareness of the need for solid waste management, proper solid waste management. Despite the fact, the issues, the controversies on how to efficiently manage our waste, the basic fact remains that all of us must get involved, as all of us are waste generators, and therefore we must share the responsibility for waste management. That was my closing already. Thank you very much to everyone.
For the awarding of the best project, we have project output by Group 5, Bin and Bin.
Bin and Bin. Yay!
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Bin and Bin.
And congratulations also to all who participated in the workshop. Yeah, and so thank you so much for your participation, and we would like to end this workshop with the UP Naming Mahal. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. Before we close the meeting room, we'll first have a short documentation. So if it's okay with you to turn on your video sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Again. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. And we hope you've learned something from this webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much po.
Evaluation link.
Everybody.
We will send evaluation link po to your emails. And after niyo mag-fill up an evaluation form, you will receive the certificates po. Thank you. And congratulations also to the winners.
For
To Bean and
low
Bean.
prices and also yung price ng project proposal, we will send them po in a while. I am waiting for the contact number of the winner po ng project proposal. So, okay niyo po and send na po namin.
Again, thank you so much for your participation. Congratulations to the winners and also congratulations to ENS 203 class for this webinar. Thank you so much, and I'll now be
Yay.
closing this.
Thank you so
Zoom
much,
meeting.
guys.